So, what if one of the world's most important shipping lanes just slammed shut? How long would it take for the rest of us to feel it? Well, a brand new report gives us a surprisingly specific answer. Today, we're breaking down that exact tipping point. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the big question. What really happens if the Strait of Hormuz, this absolute artery for global trade, what happens if it suddenly closes? What are the real-world consequences? Take a look at this map from the report. It tells you everything you need to know about the stakes. I mean, those massive green bubbles over Asia, that's a story of deep, deep dependence. But you can see bubbles all over the globe. This isn't just some regional problem. It's a global one that connects pretty much everyone. All right, so to really wrap our heads around the impact, we first have to get a sense of the sheer scale of what we're talking about. The numbers here are just staggering. Just look at that number for a second, $1.2 trillion. That's how much annual trade from just 5 countries in the Gulf could get completely frozen by a long-term closure. It's an absolutely massive figure. Now, that huge number includes something you've probably heard before. About a fifth of the entire planet's daily oil supply squeezes through this one little choke point. And yeah, that's the big headline number everyone knows, but the story actually goes a lot deeper. And this whole analysis, it zooms in on 5 specific countries that are completely dependent on the strait for their sea-based exports. We're talking Iran, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. For them, a closure isn't just an inconvenience, it's like their main door to the world market gets slammed shut and locked. So who's most on the hook if this happens? Well, you can see right here. Asia's biggest economies are at the front of the line. China, India, Japan. We're talking tens and tens of billions of dollars for each of them. They've built huge parts of their economies around Gulf energy and materials, which makes them incredibly vulnerable. Now, over in Europe, the story is a little different, but the dependency is just as real. The UK and Italy are at the top, and a lot of that is driven by critical energy needs, like liquefied natural gas from Qatar. This isn't just about trade. For them, this is about keeping the lights on. And this is where the report gets really interesting, because it looks way beyond just oil and gas. There are all these other critical products moving through the strait that you might not think about. So let's compare 2 of them. Fertilizers, which we need for our food, and specialty gases, which we need for all our tech. Now, you'd think a shutdown would be a catastrophe for both, but the report found that the immediate risk is surprisingly low, but for completely different reasons. So for fertilizers, the shock basically gets absorbed by the farming calendar itself, because farmers plan so far ahead. And for those specialty gases, the shock is absorbed because there are other major suppliers around the world. It's like the global supply chain has these built-in shock absorbers. But, and this is a big but, that resilience has a very, very clear limit. Okay, and this is where we get to the absolute heart of this entire analysis, the single biggest finding, which they discovered using this incredibly sophisticated shipping model. So how'd they figure this out? Well, they didn't just stare at spreadsheets. No, they basically simulated a global traffic jam. They used this model called tides to simulate what happens when you have 10,000 ships trying to get around, and then suddenly this one critical route gets blocked. And this chart, this shows you exactly what they found. Look, a 2-week closure? It's a small disruption, barely a blip. Even a 4-week closure, that middle bar, causes a delay, but it's manageable. But then look at that jump. Doubling the closure time from 4 weeks to 8 doesn't just double the impact, it multiplies it like crazy.
And that's the whole ballgame right there. The key takeaway, straight from the report itself, is that there's a tipping point. The damage doesn't just add up day by day. After 4 weeks, it explodes. It's not a straight line. It's a curve that suddenly shoots for the moon.
And why does this happen? Well, think about it like a traffic jam. A ship that's late to one port is now going to be late to the next port, and the one after that. The delays start to compound, creating these cascading failures that ripple out across the entire globe. The whole network just can't catch up. It starts to break. So after all that, what's the big lesson we should take away from this? It's actually incredibly simple, but really, really powerful. It all comes down to this timeline. The most important thing isn't if a disruption happens, it's for how long it lasts. The system is resilient, it can take a punch, it can absorb a short shock. But what it can't handle is prolonged, unrelenting stress. It bends, and then, right around 4 weeks, it starts to break. And, this realization completely changes how you should think about responding to a crisis like this. The goal can't just be to reopen the strait. The goal has to be to reopen it fast. Every single day, every week, after that 4-week mark matters so much more than the one before it. The clock is ticking, and it starts ticking a whole lot faster after week 4.
And that leaves us with one last big thought, doesn't it? This report was about one waterway, but it really reveals a fundamental truth about our modern world. Everything is built on these incredibly complex, interconnected systems, and those systems have breaking points. The question this analysis leaves us with is, do we know where the others are?